What is up, everybody? Welcome to AK Plays. I'm AK. Let's play.
Look what you've done! I'm melting! Melting!
Alright, everybody, so today I'm going to be talking about my favorite team composition or team setup for update 1.8.3. Now, I've talked about all the builds and all the underrated and what you're good, what to be using, and all the fun stuff. And this is kind of what I've come up with and what my team ideally runs. Depending on what our server's looking like and how many people are fighting, what they're running, we might change some things up. But as it stands, this is kind of my favorite to run when the scenario supports it. And basically I'm going to go through each individual item in this team and kind of describe what they all do, why they're there. Now, in none of these clips do I think that we're running this 4-man. We might be running it in this clip, I'm not sure. But either way, the 4-man that I'm talking about, it works pretty well, and the reason for that is it has a couple of support builds, and then of course DPS builds, which are going to help to make sure everything runs smoothly. Now, obviously, depending on your scenario, you're going to shift to different things, and you're going to adapt to what other people are running. Obviously, if you're running one thing and they come up with a counter for it, you have to adapt to that. But as it stands, this is the first build that I like to have on our team, and usually I'm the one to run it because I love running this. It's Reclaimer. Now, Reclaimer's a lot of fun, but not necessarily all that fun for the user. I'm very used to it, and I like running it, and I get a lot of fulfillment out of keeping my teammates up and getting some slick revives and getting some good buffs for them, good combat medics, timing everything. And usually the Reclaimer will take kind of point as shot caller because they're not going to be in a lot of face tanks, so they're going to be able to focus on the situation, see people coming from different directions, and make callouts. So Reclaimer is very important, and if you have a good Reclaimer, it can completely elevate your team to a ridiculous level. Now, obviously, there's not there are some Reclaimers that are not quite as good as others, but if you work at it and you really kind of try to learn the ropes of Reclaimer, understand what you should be doing, how you should be playing, watching your teammates' health bars. I've actually done a video on tips for Reclaimer way back when, but either way, a good Reclaimer can really elevate the team, and we like to run it because the Reclaimer box is just so powerful. To give you an extra 15% skill haste, extra signature skill resource gain, the constant healing, and of course it works as an immune station, so it's going to keep you off of status effects and keep you clear of pred bleed. So Reclaimer is very, very powerful for that reason, and that's why it definitely makes a spot on our team. Now, the counter to Reclaimer, as everyone probably knows, is Disruptor. And a lot of people will run Disruptor, especially in this update. You're going to see it usually ran by D3s, mostly ran by Predator's marks, and occasionally you'll see it ran by somebody else. But the only time you should really worry about it is if it's ran by a Tactician. A Tactician is able to get a Disruptor on you every 9 seconds or so, which that will completely nullify Reclaimer, and you'll have to adapt. If it's a Predator's mark or a D3 that's running Disruptor, then you're probably going to be fine. I would just tell your team, hey, we're dropping back, pop in the box. You pop the box, run, and wait for your next box, and then put a new box down. That's how you would adapt to that situation. And if you do run into a Tactician Disruptor, I'm sorry, you're probably out of luck when it comes to Reclaimer, and you will have to switch that build out for something else. Now, you might say EMP grenades are going to be a big problem, but with this team composition, you're going to have a counter for that. And that is going to be the next build I'll show you, which is Final Measure. Now, to kind of round out my Reclaimer clip here. Now, Reclaimer is extremely strong, and you're going to love having a Reclaimer on your team to keep your teammates up, to keep them keeping themselves up with their skills coming back, and to keep them immune. The Reclaimer's duties, literally just keep everybody alive. That is your one job. And, of course, if you have a Reclaimer who's comfortable making callouts and taking points, they can become a shot caller for your team, which is very, very strong. So on they're going to be making some diving catches and try to catch the grenades to keep you from getting nade spammed. You're going to get the buffs from their grenades, and that's going to really assist your team, whether it's a nade that gives you stamina or a frag grenade giving you a firearms buff. They are going to really help the team. Secondary objective for them is they're not really a DPSer, so I'd be careful with that. They're more going to be just up there in the mix, but they're not going to be shooting a lot of people unless they think they have a really easy shot. So your final measure is not going to be shooting a ton of people, but they're mostly going to be spraying you with heals, catching grenades, and kind of being up there to be part of it if there is some needed extra DPS. Now, I didn't really mention it with the Reclaimer, but that Reclaimer's skills are going to be a Reclaimer box and I would say an overdose. And that's because your Reclaimer should be running with about 10k electronics, which is going to make them extremely squishy, or have low stamina, which means that they die very easily, meaning you want an overdose to give them the most maximum heal. And the Reclaimer is going to be way in the back, strafing, doing the Reclaimer shuffle, and trying to run away and hide from people, while all three of your other players are up front a little bit more. Your final measure, I would say, should be ran with 4,000 stamina and about 9,000 electronics, and should be running with a defib or defibrillator, and your pulse. Now, they should be running with about a 34 conceal pulse, which is going to boost the rest of your team's stats, including the next one, which is your D3. Now, I know a lot of people don't like D3, but if you can find someone who's really good at it, in this team setup, it ends up doubling as a little bit of added DPS with some really good support. Now, D3 in itself is extremely strong and very meta right now. And this team is a little bit of a try-hard team when I put this whole concept together. We don't always like to run this because it is really strong and usually it's overkill for the server you're on. But if you do have a 4-man, you're running against an army of people, or you're fighting against another very good 4-man, then this is going to be your try-hard ultimate setup. At least it's my favorite for that kind of scenario. So your D3 is going to be giving you stamina buffs, and if the enemy comes up with a sticky bomb, or they're trying to spam nades at them and the final measure doesn't catch all the nades, they will give you a firearms buff as well. And yes, the firearms buff from the measure and the D3 stack, so you can potentially get a ridiculous firearms buff. The pulse from that final measure is going to buff the crit chance and crit hit damage for the SMG on your D3, making your D3 actually do some real damage. So your D3 is going to have the ability to melt players while being pretty much invincible himself, while being in a Reclaimer box that's going to make him even more invincible, and having the skill haste that if you have him running a Disruptor as his secondary skill, then he's going to keep your enemy team disrupted as well. So basically that's how I would do it. I would have that D3 running with his shield and a Disruptor. That way the skill haste, and if you have your D3 ran the way I do, it's already pretty high in skill haste, so a skill haste buff from the Reclaimer box will put him pretty close to max, and he'll be able to disrupt continually, really irritating the enemy team and preventing them from coming up with other skills that might really put a damper on what you're trying to do. So I would say that that D3 is going to be extremely strong, and he'll do a little bit of DPS. But we want to do a little more than that, so on to the fun part, which is your DPSer. Now, I say DPSer without an S. That is not plural. And the reason for that is because I think that that D3 can do enough DPS that it will definitely prevent players from pushing you, and then this DPSer is going to basically put everyone down. I would have this be an 8,000 firearms, 5,000 stamina Banshee, 5-piece with a vigorous chest. And yes, I'm running a vigorous chest on this, even when I'm solo. I don't know why. I went out and tested it. I usually don't run this build with the team, but this build will do crazy DPS. You have them run with their crit chance a little bit low, so the pulse buffs their crit chance, and they become an insane DPSer with the vigorous chest giving them a buff. And now this is what I usually run when I run DPSer, and that is Lone Star. Now, I know a lot of people love Lone Star for its fun effect, but it's really not what you want to run in a team concept like that. I would stick with that Banshee 5-piece with the Vigorous. But that's it for the video today, guys. I hope you enjoyed. If you have any questions, let me know in the comments, and I will catch you guys tomorrow.
No! God, please, no!
I got you, fam!